it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, on this Monday, February 10th. The National Hockey League is off tonight, as, of course, the players who will take part in the Four Nations tourney practiced earlier today in Montreal, because Montreal will be host to games between now and Saturday, starting on Wednesday, February 12th, which, by the way, in full transparency, I will be at that game. So Agnello and I were invited. We've gladly accepted. Canada will face Sweden Wednesday at 8 p.m. at the Bell Center in Montreal. On Thursday night, it's the United States versus Finland. And on Saturday afternoon, it's Finland versus Sweden. And then on Saturday night, it's the United States versus Canada. From there, the tourney will move to Boston, where on Monday, February 17, Canada will play Finland at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Sweden will play the United States at 8 p.m. All games are played with NHL rules. Each team will play 3 tournament games in a round-robin format under the following point system: 3 points for a win in regulation, 2 points for a win in overtime or a shootout, 1 point for a loss in overtime or a shootout, and 0 points for a loss in regulation. The 2 teams with the best tournament record are then going to advance to for a 1-game final, which is going to take place on Thursday, February 20th in Boston. That's the championship game at 8 p.m. So once again, 4 games will take place in Montreal between now and Saturday night. And next week, but on Monday and on Thursday, there will be 3 games which will take place in Boston. Tonight, all hockey eyes are on the number 1 Boston College Eagles versus the number 9 Boston University Terriers. It's the Bean Pot Championship, and Cole Hudson, Lane's brother, is playing for Boston University, and Montreal Canadiens top prospect, goalie Jacob Fowler, is in goal for Boston College. I have one eye on the screen, and it looks like Boston University is on their way. They're up by a score of 3-1. The Boston College have now pulled their goalie, and there is about a minute and a half to go in regulation time. So I'll give you the update there. But once again, it looks like, boom, there's an empty net goal. So this one is a sealed deal. Boston University is up by a score of 4-1, and this game and this championship is theirs. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by several of our amazing sponsors, which I'll talk to you about in just a couple of minutes. But without further ado, I bring in Eric Engels of Sportsnet.ca. Eric, how are you?
What's up, Tony?
It's all good, my man. You have a busy couple of weeks ahead of you here. I was actually at the Bell Center earlier this evening because JC Show is going live from there, from a loge in the Bell Center. And I was there this evening, and it's pretty cool. You could smell that something important is happening in the city, Eric.
Yeah, it should be an interesting event. I mean, obviously, tickets are being sold for this event at premiums. I think, with reason, you're going to see a lot of people pay big dollars to see Canada and USA on Saturday for sure. I'm not sure how it'll go Thursday when there's an afternoon game. And then I think the premium matchup Wednesday, Canada-Sweden, will sell well. But in the end, we're talking about, okay, it is a best on best tournament, and that's with the caveat that obviously we don't have Russia's best here, we don't have the Czech Republic's best here, we don't have Slovakia's best or Switzerland's best here. A lot of the best players in the NHL are not going to be at this tournament. I'm thinking of Nikita Kucherov. I'm thinking of Kirill Kaprizov, who's hurt anyways. I'm thinking of, Leon Draisaitl. But look, man, we missed 2 Olympic Games with the opportunity to see, and forget the Olympics. Before the Olympics, we had the World Cup of Hockey, where they created the under 23 North American team. So that's 3 opportunities we've been robbed of to watch Crosby, McKinnon, and McDavid on the same team together.
Yeah.
Potentially skating together, be it on a line or a power play unit. And it was all put in jeopardy again this past week with Crosby suffering that upper body injury. And on day 1 of practice, and this is a short tournament, this is not like the World Cup in 2016 when there was 2 weeks of lead up and you could experiment and do different things. On day 1 of Team Canada's practice, they rolled out a power play unit that had Crosby, McKinnon, and McDavid on the ice at the same time. There's no mystery here. This is going to happen. It's not a dream scenario that we've all been hoping for over 10 years. It's finally going to happen. And if you're not excited to see that, then you're not a big hockey fan.
I got this, and it's up on the screen right now from the RDS Twitter account. It's Canada's first wave of their power play. Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, like you mentioned, with Reinhart and Cale Makar. Their second wave has Stone, Point, Marner, Morrissey, and Shea Theodore. So, we started with this. We're going to go, and we're going to end with the Four Nations tourney. It's a Montreal Canadiens podcast. We're going to go to the Canadiens now, but I'm just going to say this before we go to this tourney a little bit later. I'm excited about it. We have a chance to see Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, like you mentioned. We have a chance to see elite hockey players, stars, but it's not going to be the best tournament out there. Like you said, we're deprived of many superstar players. And for me, when you don't invite Czechia and you don't invite Russia, it's not the same. Hockey definitely needs those powerhouses to be involved in any big-time tournament, okay? So anyway, we'll move on. We'll get to it a little bit later. We need to talk about the Canadiens, who some people were saying, even going into the weekend, their season's over. Others were saying they absolutely need to win both games in regulation. Now that they lost both games in regulation, and they're 6 to 7 points out of a wild card with 26 games to play. Most people are saying their season is over. Some people are saying, a record of 19-7 over the next 26 is not out of the question. It's doable. And yeah, it's kind of doable if they go on a run of 13-3-1, which they did about 6 or 7 weeks ago or whatever it was. But they're going in a different direction, Eric. They've lost 8 of their last 9 games. What are you seeing?
I mean, the same thing that everybody should be seeing, right? Like the Canadiens had a golden opportunity to reinforce their position, and all it really would take was them surviving this 9-game segment headed into the break, right? I think even going back 7 games, last time you and I spoke, or maybe it was 2 times ago, that I said, if they go 3-3-1, they'll be in good shape here. They don't have to have a winning record. They just need to survive leading into the break so that they're in the position that we were discussing a little while back, where they'd consider holding on to their unrestricted free agents and letting them go for nothing at the end of the season. They'd consider a good long-term deal for Jake Evans if they could compromise with him and find even footing. Those things kind of fall out the window when you fall this far back and lose 8 of those 9 games and you don't survive. Look, this is going to sound like the complete opposite vantage point, because with everything we've seen this season, it is still possible that the Canadiens come out of the break and rip 6 wins in a row. And we're talking about a completely different scenario. It's just with what happened leading into this break, and with it being a 2-week break, and with there only being 6 games to the trade deadline and the time being of essence, you just think that some of these decisions are going to get sorted out over the next 2 weeks of this break, where some of these players are not going to come back with the Canadiens, and that's only going to deplete their opportunity to get back into the race the way they'd like to. So, look, nothing would surprise me, Tony. Like with everything we've seen this season and how wide open the Eastern Conference is, I wouldn't put it past the Canadiens to go on another good run. You said that they would need to win 19 of 26 games to make the playoffs, which I guess would probably bring them somewhere around, 92 or 93 points?
So
whatever. They have 55. They have 55, right? So
yeah, they got 55, and if they pick up 38, that would be 93, which last year 91 got you in.
Yeah.
Several years ago, 96 did not. Most seem to believe that this year 93, 94 should get you in.
Seems like the right idea. I don't think it's impossible. They went 19-8-1 over that 2-month period where they played their best hockey this season. It's just, I think, going to get a lot harder if some of these guys start walking out the door via trade.
So, speaking of which, Jake Evans was asked at the end of the game yesterday, after losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning, what, being a Montreal Canadien means to him. And let's listen carefully to his answer.
Been an honor. It's such a fun place to play, such a great place to live, and I've just really enjoyed it. It's truly an honor. It's so much tradition here, so many great players that have worn this jersey with pride, and it's truly an honor.
All right. Not so sure that everyone caught the beginning of that, but he said it's been an honor. Yeah. And later on, he said it is an honor. He answered that question speaking in the past tense at the beginning, which has several Canadiens fans rattled. I mean, does Jake Evans know something? Was he told that he's going to be dealt? Is he talking like this because he's pessimistic about staying here? Is he talking like this because he's actually negotiating himself through the media here? What is he doing? But it has some people rattled.
I understand, and I'm the person who asked him the question, and the question was very simple. What does it mean to you to be a Montreal Canadien? That was the question in present. Yeah. He started in past tense and quickly corrected himself halfway through the answer, realizing that he was speaking that way. He hasn't been told that he's going to be traded. He knows how the negotiations are going with the Canadiens. If they've been categorized as there being a chasm between both parties, doing my own research, I think they're apart on years, much more so than money. The money you figure out, but this is Jake's opportunity to secure, to gain the security that he has earned. And go back a year, right? What did Sean Monahan leverage his season with the Canadiens and thereafter with the Jets to get himself on the open market as a player who was so battered and injured and bruised that the Canadiens got a first-round pick to take him to Montreal? I had people in Calgary telling me he'd never be able to play at any type of good level again in the NHL, and he was almost a point-per-game player with the Canadiens, and boom, he got signed for a 5-year deal in Columbus with a cap hit of $5.5 million, I think. And he's been great in his first year. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, and I'm not comparing Evans directly to Monahan, okay? Not the same profile of player, but he is having a career year at a time where the salary cap is about to, over the next 3 years, grow exponentially. What do you think is going to happen? He's going to look for a deal that could potentially net him 5 or 6 years on a contract, no matter what the number value is that's assigned to each year in that contract. That is a level of security that he only could have dreamed of as a 7th-round pick and a guy who accepted long ago that he'd only be a 4th-line center for the Canadiens.
Yeah.
And I'll take it a step further. His best way to maximize his value as a pending free agent will be playing with a playoff team and a team that has a true chance of winning a Stanley Cup this year with his inclusion.
Yes.
So there's a lot of teams that should be lining up. I know Elliot Friedman, my colleague at Sportsnet, reported on 32 Thoughts that he believed the asking price would be a 2nd-round pick. I think the Canadiens will be looking for more than that in the deal for Evans at this point.
Yeah.
And we'll see where it goes. It's not too late that they end up signing a contract here. If Evans truly wants to stay and the Canadiens truly want to keep him, these are how negotiations work, and you give both sides gives their ideal scenario until you whittle things down to what you'd be willing to accept on either side of it.
Yeah.
But Like, are the chances better that he signs with Montreal than he goes at this point with everything that's happened over the last few weeks and what his market value potentially is? It's really hard to say that.
Yesterday, during the broadcast, the Habs broadcast on TSN, Pierre LeBrun said, my understanding is Jake Evans and the Canadiens have exchanged numbers on what an extension might look like, and they're not close. Obviously, things can change with one phone call, but as of now, that makes it more likely Evans gets dealt before the March 7 deadline. Calls from teams asking about Evans has increased lately with the Habs slide in the standings. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Renaud Lavoie of TVA Sport earlier this morning said on BPM Sports Radio on the morning show, Le Club du Matin, that his understanding is that Jake Evans has not, or his agent has not asked for $4 million. I don't have intel on this one, so I'm not going to pretend like I do. I don't. But, and I trust what Renaud has to say. But allow me to be very surprised that his clan has not asked for $4 million. Because if they haven't, then where are they so far apart? Isn't what you said in terms of years more so than money?
What's your best opportunity as a free agent that's 28 years old? It's to obviously secure years on a contract, right? And that's what any player at that stage of their career is most concerned with, is term and the ability to secure their job in the National Hockey League for as long as possible. Look, there are so many factors that go into a negotiation like this. And Jake is going to have to weigh them as a player that has found real comfort in Montreal and has been appreciated for the type of player that he is, and given the opportunity that he's been given by the Canadiens to play the role that he has, which has been elevated under Marty St. Louis. He's not guaranteed that no matter where he goes. But if some team out there is willing to give him 5-6 years on a contract, and I'm pretty sure the Canadiens wouldn't be willing to go that far with him.
I wouldn't. Love him as a player, right? Would take him on my team any day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Yeah,
I'm not going 5 years on Jake Evans.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Tony, you've been doing this as long as I have. This is 17 years I've been covering the NHL. I think you've been doing it, if not the same amount, just maybe a year longer, whatever it is.
Since 2002.
So 2002. There you go.
Yeah.
Even much longer. That's 5 more years.
It's all right.
So we know how free agency works. It's a team that signs a player that gets to market is going to give up an extra year and potentially an extra couple $1 million in that deal, knowing that they're going to eat it towards the end of that contract. That's just the way it is. That's the way it works if you're going to win on the open market.
Yeah.
Knowing that Evans would believe that's something that, and his representatives would believe that's something that he could potentially ascertain on the market, it also speaks to the trade market for the player. There are a number of teams that can use this player. Like, there are a number of teams in Canada that could use this player. There are a number of teams in the United States that could use this player. I know my colleague Arpin Basu at The Athletic has been floating the idea of him and Armia going in a package deal. It's a novel concept that we've seen applied in different areas this year. You just saw Pittsburgh and Vancouver complete such a deal. I look at a team, and I'm not saying this with any intel whatsoever, but just off the top of my head, you don't think the Los Angeles Kings would love to have a combination of Evans and Armia as their penalty killing unit and guys that fit specifically with the style of game that they play?
For sure.
There's a lot of teams that you could point to that would want those two players, and Evans is certainly the centerpiece of that. Like, you just look at his versatility, his ability to play up and down the lineup. There is a value that's been created here that potentially prices him out of Montreal. This was a reality going back to when he was scoring at a 31% clip, which we knew was unsustainable.
Yeah.
But it had less to do with his scoring ability and more to do with just how locked in he is to his role and what he provides in terms of value on a nightly basis. And it hasn't really the scoring has come down a little bit, but what he brings on a nightly basis hasn't. And players like him, they don't get opportunities like this every day, especially with where the cap is going. So you could understand it from Montreal's perspective. It's not like they don't value Jake Evans, but they value him at a certain point that is underneath what the market could potentially bear for Jake Evans, and he has to do what's best for him and his family and his career.
We're going to continue to talk about Jake Evans, but not before I talk to you about some of our sponsors of the Sick Podcast. And I'll start with Playground. If you're looking for the ultimate entertainment experience, look no further than Playground. From thrilling gaming and world-class poker to exquisite dining, live music, and electrifying DJs, Playground has it all. Delivered with unmatched customer service, conveniently located just over the Mercier Bridge, minutes from downtown Montreal. Why settle for less when you can have it all at Playground, your top destination for nonstop fun? Visit playground.ca for details. Also brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi, who launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for chilly winter days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. When the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup in 2021-2022, their third-line centerman was Alex Newhook. I believe Jake Evans in 2024-2025 is a better hockey player than Alex Newhook was in 2021-2022. But it's not because he's a better player than Newhook that necessarily means that going forward he would be a third-line player. Jake Evans is 28 years old. He'll be 29 in June. And Alex Newhook obviously was, he was probably 21 years old when they won that Stanley Cup. And Alex Newhook had a guy like Nathan MacKinnon in front of him who can carry a team, and the Canadiens don't have a Nathan MacKinnon at center just yet. What am I saying here? I'm saying that in an ideal world, and I think you said it before, Jake Evans is a fourth-line centerman on a Montreal Canadiens team that can go far. I don't think you can give $4 million to a fourth-line centerman. And I had this debate earlier this morning with my colleague, Alex Langto at Master Control, who said, yeah, he's very good defensively. He's a good player. And the Canadiens should learn from losing Phil Deneau that they can't make this guy walk. And they drafted him and they developed him. So absolutely they have to keep him. And the cap's going to go up anyway. And I said, Alex, you just can't give, as much as I love the guy, if $4 million is the number and we don't know what the number is, let me just get that out of the way right now. You can't give that to a fourth line player. And Eric, you can correct me if I'm off here, but I said, if Michael Hage is going to be a third line player one day or a second line player after his entry level is complete, what do you think he's going to ask for? Do the same thing with Kapanen. Do the same thing with any other player that's on the top three lines. So I said, if he's a fourth line player, you can't give him that number. Alex goes, well, the cap's going to go up. And I said, well, the cap will go up, but that doesn't mean that Jeff Molson's going to be willing to spend it. He's going to be bringing in revenue in Canadian dollars, spending in U.S. Our dollar is hurting. And Alex says, well, if he wants to win a Stanley Cup, he has to. And I said, Alex, I get that he has to. It doesn't mean that he will. We don't have the answer to that. I don't even know if Jeff Molson has the answer to that just now. So my question to you is, let's say if the number is $4 million. Yes or no?
The answer is depends over how many years. That's the answer.
So if Jake Evans' agent would want 4 times 4, you would give it to him?
So here's what I know about negotiation, okay? Negotiation is not about you getting what you want and me getting what I want. It's about you getting what you are willing to accept and me getting what I'm willing to accept. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we call a compromise. That's the ideal negotiation.
Yeah.
And in this scenario, 4 times 4, is it what the Canadiens would want to give Jake Evans? Not necessarily. Is it what they might be willing to accept? I think you could make an argument for that. Jake Evans getting 4 times 4, is it what he would ideally want when he knows he's staring at a market value that could pay him a contract over 5 or 6 years? I mean, at least he assumes that'll be the case and that his profile will only grow with a better team. What are they willing to accept? I think both of them might be willing to accept that deal if it's on the table. But if that deal were on the table right now, we might not be talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, I understand the principle, and you're right. You know, if you have a guy that you are guaranteeing is going to be on your fourth line and you're paying him $4 million, that might be a little steep, even with the salary cap growing as exponentially as it's about to for the next 3 years. Realistically, though, Jake Evans, if he signs a 4-year deal at $4 million with the Canadiens, is going to be a third line player for 2 of those 4 years. Like, and a good one. He's a good third line player on a lot of teams in this league. There's a lot of teams right now that would trade for him and plug him right into that hole, even if they'd like to label him, quote unquote, a fourth line player. He's going to play third line minutes with what he does on the penalty kill and all those things. And they'd like to pay a little less in terms of trade value just by labeling him a fourth line center. So look, you know, you just mentioned Colorado. There's another team that like traded Rantanen away because they know they need the depth to be able to compete and try and win a Stanley Cup, and they weren't going to be able to do that knowing that they've got a contract to sign for Cale Makar. There's another team that might even be willing to rent Jake Evans and knowing that they won't be able to sign him long-term to the type of deal that he might be able to get on the market. So I know I'm not going against what Fried said, that the asking price might be a second-round pick for guys like Evans and Armia. I also know Kent Hughes, and if he's considering trading Evans, who would be a valuable piece to the Canadiens both now and in the future, and knowing how big the market might actually be for that type of player, because if you look through the market, name me one guy outside of Brock Nelson who is a better option for a guy that can help you in the playoffs as a center.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of them available.
No, you're right. There's not.
It's part of the reason why this whole thing came up. It's not just because the Canadiens lost 8 of 9 games.
Yeah.
It's because they did it right before the optimum time for teams to be talking about which players are going to be going where. You know, they did it in such a way to turn the Canadiens into a place where they have to consider selling some of these assets. They are not going to sell them just to collect picks. They're going to sell them for what they hope would be premiums because they've proven up that value that would be higher on the market than it is to their actual team.
Speaking of NHL trade deadline, which will take place on March 7th, after the Four Nations tourney, the Canadiens will play their first game in Ottawa on Saturday, February 22nd. The week after that, they're going to play a couple of games. They're going to host Carolina on a Tuesday. They're going to host the San Jose Sharks on a Thursday. And then in the month of March, they're going to be in Buffalo on the 1st, host Buffalo on the 3rd, go to Edmonton on the 6th, which is the Thursday. And then on the Friday, March 7th, is NHL trade deadline day. So after the Four Nations tourney, the Montreal Canadiens will play a total of 6 games.
6 games.
Before NHL trade deadline.
3 against San Jose and Buffalo. Not that anybody's a walkover in this league, as anybody recognized by now. Like if you watch the San Jose game, I don't care if Montreal's confidence was kind of low. They gave them as hard of a game as you could play in this league at this time of year.
Yeah.
Like they played hard and they had a lot of guys going that night. But like, I don't know if the Canadiens are coming out of this break intact. It's hard for me to imagine that'll be the case. And if it is the case, and Jeff Gordon and Ken Hughes are willing to hold and wait and see how those 6 games go and really just do it all at the deadline if they're planning on making changes, all bets are off. Like I don't know what'll happen. It's compelling to me because I know people are looking at these 8 of 9 games and they're so disappointed in the Canadiens, and it's totally justified. I totally get it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to sit here and sell you some kind of like miracle story that they're going to come out of the break and be on fire. It's just the nature of the way this season has gone. Like it's completely unpredictable. Like when the Canadiens started the season losing 13 of 17 games, I wouldn't have turned to you and said they're about to win 19 of the next 31. Like they did. That's what they did. So who knows? Like who knows what's going to happen? Detroit, when Montreal was up and basically went through the best part of their run, beating Detroit twice in a row before going on this great run, that they were the best team for about just shy of a month in the NHL. Like everybody was looking at Detroit and saying it's over. Like they're screwed. They've lost 5-6 games in a row. They just rattled off 8 wins in 10 games.
It's amazing. It's amazing what they've done. So,
but it's just, who are we to sit here and predict what's about to happen in the next 30? Like, I don't think the past is so much predictive of what's about to happen, specifically this season with the way this Eastern Conference is shaken out.
So on the weekend, Marty St. Louis had seen enough finally versus Tampa. And actually, speaking of Jake Evans, put him with Suzuki and Caulfield. By the end of the game, he actually had Kirby Dach there as well. So they both had some action with Suzuki and Caulfield. But what it meant for Juraj Slafkovsky is he ended up playing on a line with Dvorak and with Gallagher. And to his credit, he played well. Marty said after the game that the mistake that Slafkovsky made on the first goal was one of the reasons, obviously, that led to Slafkovsky being demoted. But he also added that he loved the way Slafkovsky responded, and he thought that in the end, he had a good game. Let's hear Juraj Slafkovsky.
He saw my first 2 shifts, and probably had no option. It's been going on like that for a while, and needed a change, and I had to get going, and I think result is not good, but maybe I had a couple good shifts after that. It just happened, a little wake up call, and I tried to wake up after what happened, whatever, on a goal and right after. But sometimes as a coach you have to make this decision, and I think today it helped me.
Good for both those guys, eh? Marty not shying away, this is a guy who was drafted first overall, Slafkovsky. He tells members of the media, he knows we're not stupid. And he knows the fan base isn't stupid either. Everyone saw what happened on the first goal. And then after that, boom, he wasn't happy and didn't have a lot of patience anymore. Boom, that's it. You're getting demoted to the third line. And Slafkovsky responds well. Slafkovsky says, you know what? After my first 2 shifts, honestly, he didn't have much of a choice. I wasn't going. He saw it. He gave me a wake-up call, and I decided it's time to wake up. And he did. I'm not saying keep Slafkovsky in the doghouse forever. I don't want to go with that. I don't believe in that. But I do believe in sometimes you have to put players in the right chair at the right moment. And maybe the moment next time around will be for Slafkovsky to start on that line again. Maybe the pressure of playing on the number 1 line, it's a little bit too much. Maybe he's got better matchups for him like this. If he comes back with Slav, with Dvorak and Gallagher for that game that they're going to play in Ottawa on the 22nd of February, I'm okay, because Slav's play is too up and down. And Marty needs to start pushing buttons with Slav. And he's already started. And it started earlier in the season. And I'm okay if he plays with those guys.
Yeah, it's up and down. He's a 20-year-old kid. I'm okay with Marty pushing the buttons that he's pushing. And you know what? I'll give you another one. I know a lot of people were clamoring for Patrick Laine to get up on that first line. He's got to prove he can play on the 4th line before he goes on the 1st. And you know what? Maybe Patrick Laine was a little pissed off that he didn't get a promotion at that point. I didn't speak to him about it.
Yeah.
I had no idea it wasn't made available. But I saw a guy who looked pretty pissed off as that game went along. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
I'm one of those guys, by the way. Okay. And what I said was, it goes against everything I believe in actually rewarding somebody who doesn't deserve it. But I thought that going into the weekend, the Canadiens had hit rock bottom. And most people seem to think that the season was over before the weekend, that because Caulfield wasn't producing in the last 10 all that much, nor was Suzuki, nor was the number 1 line, and Laine's confidence was shot, I said, what do you have to lose to put them together? And he didn't. And I don't know what would have happened if he would have. Maybe nothing. But I do know that they lost both games on the weekend.
Yeah, well, I also know he didn't look great on the 4th line.
He did not.
And until you know what? He started to get pretty pissed off. And I don't know if it was because he got hit by Radish at one point in that game and came back and hit him. But it's good to see him pissed off. I like the emotion he started to play with after he got pissed off. He was moving his feet a lot more. He was trying to finish checks. That's what it is. And, nobody wants to win these games more than Marty St. Louis. I'm telling you, he was very disappointed with the outcomes, not just of the weekend, but of the California trip, of all these games leading up, knowing that he's trying to push his team to the next level and they're not getting to it. I promise you he takes this on himself. And I know everybody thinks it's the easiest thing to make the decisions he's got to make on a nightly basis. I think it's just you're sending. I understand what you're talking about, Tony, in terms of sparking a couple guys who weren't producing and building up the confidence of a guy whose confidence is clearly sunk.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with the messages you're sending to everybody on your team, though, when you give people promotions that don't deserve it. And
I hear you.
Listen, I think Laine, you were calling him a lazy player before.
Yeah.
Earn your way there. And I thought Laine did a lot in the second half of that game to earn his way further up the lineup than anything we saw while people were begging for him to get up there.
I didn't like the fact that he was trying to deke everybody, though. He looked like he was trying to be a one-man show. He's not.
That's going to happen sometimes with the ability he has, but
yeah.
I'd rather see him trying to make a difference than just going through the motions.
I want to get back to Slav for a second.
Yeah, sure.
You remember when many of us were saying before last year's second half, so in the first half last year, many of us were saying, okay, maybe the Canadiens really got to think about sending Slafkovsky to Laval. Okay. And Kent Hughes had that presser, and I don't remember who it was that asked the question, but his answer was amazing, right? And he said, look, something to the effect of, he said, this is the way I see it. If you're not comfortable driving on the highway in the middle lane or whatever, are you always going to get off the highway to drive on the service road? Or are you going to keep on driving on the highway so that you can get used to it? And that's the way that he saw Slav, saying, okay, maybe the National Hockey League is too fast for him right now. Maybe he doesn't have that extra second. But if we get him off the highway, quote unquote, send him to Laval, and it's going to be slower, and he's going to be going at a slower pace, slower rate, a slower game, how's he going to get used to getting back on the highway, getting called back up in the National Hockey League? It made sense to me. A lot of sense. I actually thought it was brilliant. But a year and a half after that answer, and keep in mind that in the first year that Slav was in the NHL, Logan Cooley was playing college hockey. Shane Wright was still back in the OHL. Shane Wright has since had 2 stints in the American Hockey League where he's played a total of 67 games. Last year in the second half of the season, Slafkovsky was amazing. This year, right now, on February 10th, Logan Cooley and Shane Wright have been playing better hockey than Slafkovsky this season. I believe that. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean I'm right. And we'll never know the answer to this. And the Canadiens can't send them down to Laval now because he'd have to clear waivers. But I wonder if that decision of playing him in the National Hockey League at 18 years old actually, in the long term, set him back a little bit. Remember Kotkaniemi, I think we're encouraged with their first season, but then as their career went on, they were set back a little bit. I hope it's not the case for Slav. Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that it never hurts a player to go to the AHL. I don't think it hurts their development to go to the AHL, although I was very much in lockstep with the decision to keep him in the NHL when they did. I thought last year, before he got off to where he went to in the second half, that there was a point where his confidence had dipped to a level where it was more important to take care of that confidence than it was to continue to acclimate his processing speed at the speed that he needs to play in the NHL. Mm-hmm. But, right around the time I was thinking that, Marty put him on the first line with Suzuki and Caulfield, which, went against what we were just talking about with Laine. Like, he did it to kind of boost his confidence, and it worked. So, look, it's funny that there's a paradox right there in terms of what we were just talking about. There's another thing Ken Hughes said, and he said it last summer, or maybe even this fall, that he didn't think that Slafkovsky's success over the second half of last year would guarantee that he wouldn't step sideways or even a little backwards.
That's true. That's true. He said that. Yep.
I think in general, and it's not the fault of hockey fans and it's not the fault of media, we've become so accustomed to first, second, third overall, fifth overall, ninth overall picks, 20th overall picks starting in the NHL at 18 years old, because the league necessitates that to happen with the salary cap, right? Maybe we'll see less and less of it with the salary cap going up as high as it's going. I suspect we won't, because even with the money increasing that much, a lot of it is going to go to premium players that are coming into new contracts, and you'll be amazed how quickly that money gets spent and how it's not available, and teams will be cap crunched the same way they are right now. It'll go fast. I guarantee you. It'll go a little slower than if they only had $3 million to play with, but it's going to go fast. This is a league that necessitates younger players to graduate before they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And a league where we have come to expect that because they're graduating, they will be ready, and that they will not go up and down like a normal 20-year-old hockey player developing would, even if just because they're first overall picks or 62nd overall picks like Lane Hudson, who's having ups and downs right now.
Yeah.
It's an unrealistic expectation that we've developed around these kids. And I have people come up to me all the time and say, what's the deal with Slafkovsky? And like, the deal is he's 20 years old. That's the deal. Like, this is how it goes. And look, Macklin Celebrini is having an unbelievable rookie season. Like, watching him play against the Canadiens last week, he was incredible. Like, I was messaging with Tyler Toffoli, who was saying like he's unbelievable. But there's no guarantee that next year he won't have some struggles. The same way Connor Bedard, who's been a point per game player this year, has fallen under recent criticism for not having quote unquote winning habits in some of the way he plays games. I think part of that is explained by some of the players he plays with and the situation that Chicago's in, and him feeling like he has to do everything to be the guy. But he's also going through and we're talking about a guy that people have referred to as a generational player, okay? Not just the first overall pick. He's going through the normal growing pains of being a player this young in a league that is this unforgiving and difficult to play in. It's just, this is part of the process. And I know people are looking at Slav and they're saying this is going to be a wasted pick and that contract is going to be a disaster and this and that. And I could sit here and urge people to have patience, but he's ultimately going to have to prove it. He's going to have to show it. But I think what's happening with him is a lot more normal than people are making it out to be.
The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by Accent Insurance Solutions. You know all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money. Whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business, call 514-363-3636 or visit their website, www.accentassurance.com. Are the Montreal Canadiens going to make the playoffs? If yes, or if no, let me know, or go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200. If your first bet loses, scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and over. And please play responsibly. And by the way, if some of you put a couple of dollars down on the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl, as I predicted they would back on August 26th. Thank you very much. Let me do my Barry Horowitz from the WWE and just pat myself on the back there. You're welcome. Eric, before we talk about Team Canada for a couple of minutes, last Canadiens topic of the night, Montreal Canadiens topic.
Is it about David Savard?
No, it's about Jakub Dobeš, who yesterday gave up 3 goals on 8 shots. I'm certainly not going to blame him for the first 2. I am going to blame him for the third. He lost his footing and ended up, falling, taking himself out of the play. And it was a goal that hurt because it was 15 seconds into period number 2. And that one really, really hurt. And Marty St. Louis said, you know what? No, I got no time to waste here. I need to win this game. And I don't like what I just saw. And he put Montembeault in there. The Canadiens aren't losing because of their goalies. At least I don't think they are. But Dobeš clearly is not the goalie who started the way he started with the first 5 games. And we know, of course, that is a very, very small sample size. You see some nervousness coming that wasn't there before. And this is incredible that we're talking about this because we probably thought we never would have anymore. But Cayden Primeau, who went down, has been playing unbelievable hockey down. So while Primeau was up, Dobish was finding his game in Laval. When Dobish got called up, his first 5 games were amazing. Now it looks like he's trying to find his game. Primeau has rediscovered his game. Let's bring up something that I got off of RDS, the 5 Cassettes website. Cayden Primeau with the Rocket, 10 games, 10 wins. A goals against average of 196, a save percentage of 923. Eric, would you call Primeau back up and send Dobish down once the Canadiens get back into action before the next game on the 22nd?
I don't know what I would do if I were them, but I think they have to do what's best for the confidence of both players. And ultimately, they have to see what they have in net between all 3 guys.
Yeah.
Look, when Dobish was lighting the world on fire, I caught a lot of heat for sending out a tweet saying this guy deserves full credit. He's been full value for what he's been doing. But not to take anything away from him, the Canadiens could not have given a better chance to win those games, those first 3 games that he played, okay?
That was true. They gave up 23 shots in Colorado. They gave up 17 shots in Washington.
They jumped all over me for saying this, okay? You're saying no, don't take anything, but you're taking something away from him. Stop. I said he was full value and he deserved to win the games, okay?
Yeah, people just like to pick on stuff.
The Canadiens gave up 4 high danger chances against the Florida Panthers in that 4-0 win. They gave up 17 shots to the Capitals.
23 to Avalanche.
They played great in front of them, okay?
Yeah.
And the games are played on the ice, not on paper. I understand that the teams that he was playing against were phenomenal. They're the best teams in the league. He played great.
He looked at his best in the shootout versus Colorado.
The Habs played great in front of him. In the games where Cayden Primeau was nowhere near good enough this season, okay? The Canadiens did not play well in front of him. Not even close to well.
No.
In Laval, he is playing behind the best team in the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from him. But it gave him the opportunity to get his confidence back. Get away from the noise, get away from the spotlight, and just focus on himself, focus on his game, take a breath. And I told you when he went down, have we seen the last with him with the Canadiens? I'm not necessarily willing to say that. It doesn't look good. But I'm definitely not willing to say we've seen the last of him in the NHL because Sam Montembeault is a perfect example of a goalie that people counted out at 25, 26, and it just takes this long for a goalie no matter their pedigree. Dobish, I love the talent, I love the competitiveness, I love the style, and I love the mentality of the player. And I believe he will be fine. And if he gets another opportunity with the Canadiens coming back when they start up, maybe that's what will be best for his confidence. And hopefully the team plays better in front of him. But I would suggest that the next time he starts for this team, it should probably be on the road. That's where he's been most comfortable. Getting back in front of the fans at the Bell Center has been difficult. The Canadiens have not played their best at the Bell Center. They've played their worst in the games where they've looked bad in this season there.
What are you banging there? Are you playing the drums or what are you doing there? Is that just me or is it just something going through my head? No, it's okay. Go ahead. Maybe it's just me.
Oh, no, it might just be picking up some noise from the hallway.
From the hallway, really? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I mentioned that I would.
These mics are good.
Yeah. I think it's the mic when you move it. I mentioned that I would have been surprised if Primeau would have been called up. Like I wouldn't have bet on it on Betway. I would not have bet on Primeau being called up. And now all of a sudden, I'm starting to think that for Dobish to rediscover his game. But you said something when you talked about the games that the Canadiens played in front of Dobish. You were right. I think they protected him. They tried to insulate him as much as possible. They
gave him a chance to find his best self, right? Like they allowed his confidence to kind of rise to the surface.
I think that's the reality of the 3 goalies the Canadiens have, Montembeault included, Montembeault, Primeau, and Dobish for now. That they're only going to be as good as the Canadiens play in front of them. You know what I mean? Like Montembeault obviously has more experience and he's earned that number 1 label. I'll say this. I don't think they lost on the weekend because of the goalies. Okay.
No.
And for the most part, Marty St. Louis and Eric Raymond, every time they've decided on who's going to play against two, like 9 times out of 10, I think they got it right this year. I don't know if what I'm going to tell you next, Eric, would have made a difference, but I didn't quite understand the rationale of Montembeault playing versus the Devils, who Dobish played against a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday, and was the reason the Canadiens got a point and actually brought it to overtime. And I don't understand why Montembeault didn't play against the Lightning when he played so well in Tampa on the 29th of December in a 5-2 win, and played so well a couple of weeks ago in Montreal on a Tuesday night in a 3-2 win against John Cooper and company, who Cooper, of course, is the coach of Canada at the Four Nations tourney. I don't know if they would have won with Montembeault on Sunday and with Dobish on Saturday. Most likely they would have lost. We'll never know. I just don't understand the logic, though, considering I don't get it. But that's...
Well, I know if you or I were in net on Saturday, the Canadiens still wouldn't have scored a goal, so they're going to lose that game. And on Sunday, I thought Montembeault came in and gave him a chance after Dobish was pulled. First goal against Slaf, a cookie right up the middle.
You agree with what I said? Once again, they probably would have lost.
I don't know. I rarely look at things in such a revisionist way. Like, there's so many things that go into those decisions. It's hard for me to... I understand why you're doing it. It's not something that I've put any thought into. So on the spot, I don't agree or disagree. I haven't even thought about it.
Sam Montembeault likely is going to be the number 3 for Canada at the Four Nations tourney to start this tourney. Okay. He's likely going to be the number 3. I don't know if a 35 save shutout, 25, 40, whatever versus Tampa would have changed Cooper's mind. But if I'm the coach, I'm thinking, you know what? There's an incentive for my goalie there. I would have gone that way. But listen, I'm just, a very, very, very good-looking member of the Montreal Sports Media. Okay, Team Canada in ending.
Yeah.
This has been great, by the way, as usual, as it is always.
I wanted to talk about David Savard.
Really?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, I just, going back when I said, if all things remained equal, if the Canadiens remained where they were in the race before this 8-9 game thing, that they'd be better off keeping David Savard than taking, what would be probably a 4th round pick for his services.
You did say that.
My opinion has changed because the Canadiens have not remained where they're supposed to be. And I think with Carrier coming in, with the need to get Mailloux and potentially Reinbacher down the line into games, and with where Savard's game is at and what the market could potentially bear, not for the player he is, but for the type of player that he is, because there's virtually nothing available on the right side of guys who are willing to block shots with their face. Like, if you're asking me about David Savard, the player, he's fine on the Canadiens on their third pairing in an insulation role and playing probably a few more minutes than he should. There were some games where he was playing 12 minutes and the Canadiens were winning, and that would be where he'd land on a team that's good enough to think about acquiring him. Like, just as the player he is, watching him play 10 minutes at playoff pace would be concerning. But what he does on the penalty kill, what he brings to the room and all that stuff,
wow,
and the fact that he's right-handed and heavy and plays a hard, heavy game, we know that teams tend to give up for that type of thing, and there's nothing available on the market for that type of player.
This is a funny discussion here because, like you said, about a month and a half ago, you were saying if Savard's only going to get you a 4th round pick, you'd rather keep him. I was saying,
but that was it. I said that if the Canadiens remain where they were going to be.
I was saying, you know what? I think you can get a 3 for him. I would trade him. Now you've changed your mind, and I've changed my mind. You ready for this one?
Mm-hmm.
I'd bring him back on a 1-year deal, and I'd tell him, David, you're going to be my number 7. You're going to be my number 7. Because
with the market,
I don't want a young player being a number 7, Eric. My young players need to play.
We have to get to Team Canada, but there's a big difference between what the market might bear for a player that's like Savard versus what the market should bear for who Savard actually is at this stage of his career.
I think the market.
And I hate saying that because I love the player.
I love the player too.
He is such a good dude and such a willing, culture-driving force. But
you're right. But in the last 2 months,
you have to watch him play.
But you're right. But I find that in the last 2 months, he went from slow to very slow. And I find that in the last 2 months, he went from 34 years old to 36.
He's playing banged up for sure. Well, he's playing banged up for sure, but it's not helping, and it's just.
I think he would be ideal.
He looks like he's playing goalie a lot more than he's playing defense, and
you're right. I think he would be an ideal number 7. He likes it here. He loves it here. They love him. He wants to stay. Chances are he's not going to get big offers. Chances are he's not going to get one more than a 1-year deal on the market. You make him a 7. You can keep your young guys on the farm, or you can let them play. Anyway, we'll continue to monitor the situation.
I think the best before we move on to Team Canada, I'm happy to spend a couple extra minutes with you.
Yeah.
I think in a best case scenario, the Canadiens would get a 3rd round pick for him, and I don't think it would be much of a decision for them to move him if that was available to them. We'll see what develops. I don't know if that'll be on the table, but if it is, what I'm saying to you is beforehand where I would have said, just hang on. He helps insulate Arbor Jacki. He helps create a stability situation with the Canadiens where they don't have to force too many young players onto the blue line. Now it's late in the game. The goalposts have moved. The goal of the season has somewhat changed back to development more than results with what's happened over the last 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Even if the players won't admit that and they're not going to approach it that way. Like if you get a 3rd round pick for this guy, you have to move him. So we'll see what happens.
You know what, Team Canada, I only want to go in one direction here very, very quickly. The lines, they came out earlier today. Once again, according to members of the media like yourself, Eric, and others, correct me if I'm wrong, John Cooper's going to announce who his starting goalie is going to be tomorrow. He doesn't want to go on an alternation. He wants to start one guy, and one guy will be his guy. Now, if that guy gives up 7 goals in one game, chances are he'll change him, but there's a feeling that it's not Samuel Montembeault, all right? Is your feeling that it's going to be Binnington?
My feeling is it's going to be Hill.
It's going to be Hill? Yeah? Okay. So, anyway, we'll monitor that situation tomorrow.
Here, I'll give you a quick anecdote on the goaltending, okay?
Yes.
Sam Montembeault started the drills on the sidelines, okay? Yeah. So we know he's number 3.
That's right. That's not good.
We don't know if it's Binnington or Hill. Yeah. But when the locker room opened up, it wasn't an accident to see players sitting where they were sitting, okay?
You're right.
We had a row that was McDavid, Jarvis, and Crosby. Jarvis is a heck of a personality between 2 guys who are a little bit quieter. Marchand was there. McKinnon was there. Sitting, when we walked into the room, Monty walked in, and I looked, and his stall was moved 1 over from where he usually sits in the starting goalie seat. And Aiden Hill walked in right behind him, and he looked at Hill, and he said, "That's where Carey sits also." I said, "Sam, you're 1 over." And he said, "I know." And he looked at Hill, and he said, "That's where Carey sat." Binnington was in the backup seat where Dobish is, where Allen was, where anybody else. Now, that might mean nothing come tomorrow, but I think it's going to mean something in the end. So
that's interesting because as we know, Jordan Binnington plays for the St. Louis Blues, and their GM is Doug Armstrong, who's the GM.
And the goaltending coach for Canada is from the St. Louis Blues. So
yeah, that would be.
He'll have some advocates.
I'm going to go with Binnington.
Okay.
Being the starting goalie. All right.
Can we say one more thing about the goaltending? I have one more thing to say about the goaltending.
Say whatever you want. I mean, don't take too long. I got to go to the bathroom, but go ahead.
I know. Okay. Because I want to get to the lines also.
I got to start wearing diapers on this show. I drink way too much water.
You don't already?
I drink way too much water. No, I'm not there yet. Maybe next
year. I drink a lot of it too. You see, I have this tall glass this whole time. I know people are looking at these 3 guys as the weakness of this team, and understandably, justifiably, just by the numbers, okay? And I know people are looking at the United States and looking at Connor Hellebuyck and saying he's the best goalie in the world right now, and that is a huge advantage with Ottinger and Jeremy Swayman right behind him.
Yeah.
Okay? Aiden Hill and Jordan Binnington have won the Stanley Cup. They have played under massive pressure and delivered. Okay?
Yes.
Sam Montembeault was the best player in the 2023 World Championship of Hockey and led Canada to gold. He wasn't named the MVP of the tournament. I watched every game. He was the best player on their team. He delivered them that medal. Connor Hellebuck has been the best goalie for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
At least his regular season numbers have been spectacular. I did the Colorado Winnipeg playoff series last year where he gave up 8 goals in the first, 7 goals in the first game, and didn't have a better performance virtually in any game that followed. He's got a lot to prove, and he is there. I can't think of a player in the tournament who is under more pressure than he is. I can't.
Yeah. You know what I say? I agree with a lot of what you said, but I'll say this. It's not about who the best goalie in the world is. It's about who gets hot for 9 days.
Yeah. Who's the best goalie for the next 4 games?
That's it.
But Connor Hellebuck is carrying not only the weight of having to prove he could win the big games.
Yes.
But having to do so on the team that everybody's looking at as the favorite in this tournament, largely because of the goaltending. Because
if the best goalie would win the Stanley Cup all the time, it doesn't work out that way. I mean, Darcy Kemper beat Vasilevsky.
Antti Niemi knows.
Yeah, Antti Niemi won a Stanley Cup.
Over Michael Leighton.
Correct.
So
Not
yeah,
very good goalies.
I'm just saying, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if Hellebuck stands on his head and we have a second Canada goaltender going in by game 2. That wouldn't surprise me. But people are looking at it like, oh, these guys are a problem. We'll see.
Let's get to Canada's lines. Got these from Tibi, I believe. Reinhart. Okay, so McDavid at center with Reinhart on his left and Marner on his right. Crosby at center with McKinnon on his left, Stone on his right. Point with Marchand on his left, Jarvis on his right.
Now, Konechny wasn't there today, so you could see Jarvis and Konechny flip. And if they do, that line of Marchand, Point, and Konechny could be the biggest pain in the ass ever, unless you have to face Bennett, Cirelli, and Hagel next. But
Cirelli centering Hagel and Bennett. On defense, Taves, Makar, Morrissey, Parayko, Theodore, Doughty, and Sanheim looks like he's going to be your 7 Doughty, and of course for Alex Pietrangelo, who's out. And in goal, it's Binnington, it's Hill, and it's Samuel Montembeault. Look, I think it's safe to say that chances are they're starting this way. They won't finish this way unless, of course, they're unbelievable every game and they all pick up points. They score a bunch of goals. I would imagine that at one point in this tournament, John Cooper is going to be tempted to throw Crosby, McKinnon, and McDavid on a line if Canada's down in a hockey game. Or maybe he won't. Maybe Canada did it, back in the Canada Cup. Remember with Gretzky and Lemieux putting them together?
And Howard Chuck,
and Howard Chuck. That was pretty amazing. Delivered the game-winning goal. I think it was about 1:26 left in regulation or something like that. Probably should have been a penalty on Dale Howard Chuck too, but it's okay. We're Canadian and they won the game.
But you know how that tournament started, right?
They lost in Montreal 6-5.
No, you know who was playing with who? It wasn't Lemieux and Gretzky. It was Lemieux and Lemieux.
Mario Lemieux and Claude Lemieux?
They were playing together.
Yeah.
Started that tournament.
Yeah. I think Gretzky was playing with Brian Propp or something. Was he not? Or was Propp part of that? Or that was another tournament?
No, I think he was in that tournament. Messier and Anderson. There was some mixing around, but Mario Lemieux and Claude Lemieux played a few games together before.
It's the greatest hockey I've ever watched in my life.
The difference here is they don't have the time to screw around and make changes, and that's what made it so exciting that McDavid, Crosby, and McKinnon were on the ice together for a power play unit. Is they're not screwing around this. This is not some experiment that they ran on the first day of practice.
Are you going to be covering all the games in Montreal and all the games in Boston?
I'm covering all the games in Montreal and all the games in Boston. I'm covering primarily focused on Canada, but the whole tournament.
Wow.
So it's going to be a lot of work. I will say this.
Agnello and I have been invited to the game on Wednesday night. So we are going to tape earlier on Wednesday, which we normally do anyway, by the way, because Craig Button works for TSN. So, and I've told the listeners this. On Wednesdays when Craig Button's on, 99% of the time we tape earlier because Craig starts work as of 7 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. And so we're always pre-taping. So we're going to pre-tape with Craig. We're going to talk Montreal Canadiens hockey. And I'm going to be at the game with Agnello that night. We've been invited. And the following night, I'll give my take on what I saw.
Who's going to win? Who's going to win the Four Nations? Who you got?
I don't want to say what I'm going to say, but I think the States.
The States?
Yeah.
I say Canada. But you know what'll be the funniest outcome of all?
I hope you're right.
The funniest outcome will be Finland going 4-0 with a decimated blue line, with Miro Heiskanen out, with 3 main regulars out, with Henri Jokiharju having to play big minutes against Crosby and McDavid.
Yeah.
If they somehow pull it out. Look, everybody always underestimates the Finns and the Swedes. And you know what? They are more accustomed to playing with each other. They are more accustomed to playing within the team styles that they have. They grew up that way. Canada, there's a lot of players on this team that have never played together that are being thrown together. The U.S., a little different. The national development program, that you have very different ages within that group that not all, some of them have played together, some of them have never played together. It's the best team that wins, the team that comes together with a goalie that puts on a show for 4 games. I'm picking Canada to win. I think Canada will win. But you shouldn't underestimate the Finns and the Swedes for all the reasons I just said. And I understand why everybody else is going to put their money on the U.S.
Listen, I hope I'm wrong, okay? I'm obviously cheering for Canada, and I hope that Canada wins the Four Nations tourney, all right? We're going to see really good hockey, and I'm looking forward to that. Eric, always a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this, man. Enjoy the Four Nations tourney. We'll talk to you soon.
You too. Take care.
See you at the rink on Wednesday. All right. Speaking of Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that is going to be Wednesday, February 19. And Wednesday, February 19 is going to be Habs Trivia Night. Look at this. Habs Trivia Night. Join me and Quizmaster Brian on Wednesday, February 19th to test your Montreal Canadiens knowledge at La Belle et La Boeuf. At 1275 Avenue des Canadiens de Montréal. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. Trivia begins at 7:30 p.m. $35 per ticket, includes entry to the quiz and a choice of 3 burgers. Trivia teams can be up to 4 players. It's going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to being there and meeting you all. I know Brian is looking forward to being there and meeting all of you. And of course, take a look at all our social media platforms, and we'll put up all the information as to where you can get all of your tickets and where you can sign up. For Shane Gaumont and Master Control, thanks for watching, everyone. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. It's a Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBeat.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.